Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Hollywood Wargaming Studios unit review for Star Wars Legion. A little bit of background, I am still somewhat new to Star Wars Legion. I play the Grand Army of the Republic. I'm pretty versed in other wargaming though. I played Bolt Action and Warhammer 40k for a few years. Obviously Legion is a little bit different with some more moving parts with the card system. But I have a bit of a knack for understanding these units, and I have about 6 games under my belt right now, so I kind of have a feel for a lot of the basics. And fortunately with clones, there's not a whole lot out there right now, so it's pretty easy to jump in and grasp onto what there is at the moment and what synergies we have. So what better way to start this than with the Phase 1 clone troopers themselves? And in this video, we're also going to go ahead and cover the upgrade expansion for them. Of all the 4 factions in Legion, clones have the best base infantry. Off the bat, they have a red defense, black melee, and a black range attack at range 3. Compare that to almost every other faction, and you have just better infantry. But obviously there's more to it than just that. The clones also have a weapons upgrade slot, a personnel upgrade slot, a equipment upgrade slot, and a grenades upgrade slot. Now, grenades don't seem to be used very much in Legion at the moment. It might change with the addition of droid poppers and things like that, but at the moment that's a bit of a... You could do without that, but almost every trooper has a grenade upgrade. It just seems kind of compulsory, and you don't get taxed for it too hard, it seems. Equipment upgrade slot, very useful. Personnel upgrade slot, also useful, especially when you get the upgrade kit added onto that. And then, of course, the heavy weapons upgrade, which is going to be a big point of contention on this unit and what you take with it. We have the points at 52 points. That's up there for a basic infantry unit. That's definitely up there. And you're really going to have to be careful when you equip these units, because you will fall into the pit trap, especially if you buy those upgrade packs like I did. You will fall into the pit trap of slapping too much onto one of these Phase 1 clone trooper units and having them be 110-point units. And while it may be fun to think about, oh, I can get this, and I can get the captain, I can put the training on him, I can put this training on him, it's a rabbit hole that you will fall down, and you will be out-activated by your opponents, and you will have your clones destroyed. Because that red defense dice, it's good, but we have no surges, offensive or defenses. So that red die is a 4-up save, effectively. If you've played Warhammer, you know that a 4-up save is nothing for your troops to rely on. We will get into future videos on how to get surge tokens and kind of capitalize on using surges defensively with your clones to keep them alive, because a defensive surge token, or a surge token spent defensively, will make your troops go from a 4-up to a 3-up save, effectively. Movement 2, that's standard for troopers. Courage and Health 1, very standard. Courage 1, you're going to want to keep them near a leader. You can add a captain to the squad, and that allows you to ignore the effects of suppression. Personally, I would have really liked if the captain gave them an extra leadership, but it doesn't, and that's fine. That's fine. So we'll go ahead and start by looking at the special weapons that you're going to want to take for these guys. Your basic blasters, range 3, black die, not bad, pretty good offensive. However, you can definitely pump that up. And I think everyone, when they first saw these clone troopers, they saw that you can get the coveted Z6 with it, or the Z6, as my non-American counterparts around the world would say. The Z6 has 6 white dice. That's it. Range 1 to 3. Simple, but very good at cranking up the numbers. And if you're facing an army like droids or rebels, that's going to help leverage the odds of your firepower. And range 1 to 3 on the Z6, as we know in most wargaming, you want your unit profile to match weapons in range. If you have a unit that has all 1 to 3 range weapons, you're going to want a 1 to 3 range special weapon, so that way your whole unit is firing at the same time. That being said, one of my personal favorite options for the clone upgrades right now is the DC-15. And the DC-15 and the Z6 you both get in the standard package for the Phase 1 clone troopers. So you get a really nice option between quantity and quality. Now the DC-15 is going to be a 1 to 4, so you're getting that 1 extra range in there. And you're also getting 2 red dice. Now red dice punch. Those will hurt an enemy. And 2 of them is quite nice. You also get critical 1. And critical 1 is a great keyword to have when you don't naturally have surges. So let's say you're using a command card that gives the squad a surge token, or you have Phase 2s nearby that can share a surge token with them. And then you also have critical 1 coming out of your unit's weapon pool. That's basically covering your surges, It's not likely that you're going to roll. I mean, it's definitely possible, Everything's possible with the dice. But it's not likely that you're going to be rolling more than what you need with a critical 1 and 1 surge token. So the DC-15 is quite nice, especially when you use the clone's ability Fire Support. Fire Support it's good. It's very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely something that you're going to need to be a little bit more of an experienced player to kind of grasp and use it effectively, because you do need your other friendly unit to be face up. That's going to require some skilled use of command cards, some proper timing, and it might take you a while before you can do it right. But I have used it right, and let me tell you, you can take some Death Troopers off the field real quick if you use that right. It's a very opportune thing, and it's not going to come in handy all the time, but when you have a unit that hasn't activated, that you need dead, you can pull that Fire Support trigger. If you're playing the support squad logic, which we'll get into later, an extra 4 black dice to an attack pool is great, especially when you start sharing keywords. So Fire Support is really nice for that. So on top of Fire Support, clones, probably the best ability that they get, Clone Trooper units can share their green tokens, as I mentioned, at range 1. That is huge. And I think clones have huge potential because of that rule alone to be one of the hardest hitting armies in the future of Legion. So on the base you have your 2 heavy weapons, DC-15 and the Z6. Again, quantity and quality, both are pretty good. I've been playing Imperials for most of my games, so I'm really liking bringing the DC-15 along. But I could definitely see that Z6 coming in handy, especially if you can stack your tokens up and get your aims up properly. Now, baseline, your personnel, all you have is regular extra clone trooper. That's good. You get another wound, you get another black dice for attack. You know, it's good to flesh out units like this. So it's not a bad option to take that clone trooper for 13 points. However, it could also be argued that, let's say you take 3 squads clone troopers and you add 1 clone trooper each, that's going to be 39 points. You know, you could take that 39 points and put it towards a whole new unit, and with that sharing ability, that whole new unit is another token generator. So it could be arguable that you want to keep them bare bones for, or just with a heavy weapon. The personnel option can be skipped pretty easily with these guys. Now let's get on to gear. Gear is going to be good on these guys, but again, not a necessity, although I usually always do take it. So the first thing, and my favorite piece of equipment, is going to be targeting scopes. You get precise 1, it lets you reroll an extra die. Black dice are good offensively, but they're not great. They're not red dice. That aim is going to help, especially when you have special weapons thrown in there. Now, if you take the DC-15, you're only getting 2 extra red dice. Those dice are getting good odds to hit anyways. There's a good chance that you could probably skip on the targeting scopes and save yourself 4 points. If you're running the Z6, on the other hand, you're taking the targeting scopes. No question about it. Grappling hooks, you know, it depends. That's one of those ones that, unfortunately, a lot of the games have this rule. It's kind of like tracked vehicles and bolt action, where are you playing with that kind of terrain? If you are, it's something to consider. It can definitely help you out. I played games where my other units have had to, you know, our deployment ends up with a massive wall in between us. And my speeders can fly over there and cap objectives and things like that. R2 can use his blast off and fly over the wall, and their guys are stuck there clambering. So, you know, grappling hooks, it's maybe an option, but, you know, clones are getting jetpacks in the future, so honestly, skip over that. Environmental gear. Unhindered, you ignore the effects of difficult terrain. Again, same thing with grappling hooks. You could probably skip it, let's be honest. Emergency stims. Now, this is something that's actually worth considering. I haven't playtested myself. I think it's too expensive to work. If you're going to be uploading every squad you have with emergency stims, it's just too expensive. Again, going back to that personnel with a extra phase 1 trooper, if you have 4 squads of clones with that, why have them all take those upgrades when you could just get another squad of clones and get your activations up? I think it's a little too expensive to work, but if you're really going to beef up a clone unit, you might want to take it. If you're going to take a personnel and your special weapons, and that's going to be your hitting unit while other units support, it might be worth considering taking emergency stims. I don't think it will be, personally, but I'm sure there will be some scenarios where it comes down to that final turn and you need that clutch punch and you need that DC-15 hitting something, or you need that Z6 to crank out another shot to wipe out another unit, and that's where it might come in handy. But overall, I think emergency stims are just too expensive to put on a unit that's already this expensive. Recon intel, you gain Scout 1. Scout 1, you know, it's 2 points. But 2 points isn't bad. It's cheap as chips, you know. That being said, Scout 1, it's only 4 inches. It's not a very good range. Now, electro binoculars, 8 points. Unfortunately, electro binoculars, they're more or less useless with clones. I'm going to be honest. There might be a scenario in the future where you can, you're going to send this over to your Saber tank, or you're going to share this with a Jedi or something, or someone who doesn't have the clone trooper keyword. But as it stands, with the sharing of tokens with clones, electro binoculars, you don't need them. You're better off just taking an aim token for free with an action and then spending it to your teammate, because electro binoculars, they take an action. It's just not worth it. Now, grenades. I'm going to be honest with you off the bat. You can just skip grenades for the most part. You're paying for, most of them have black dice. You already have black dice. Most of them you're just basically paying for a keyword when you get to range 1. Ideally, you don't want your clones in range 1. It's just you're either paying with concussion grenades, you're paying for blast. Impact grenades, you're paying for impact. Fragmentation grenades, these are the only ones you might consider, because then you get upgrade to range, red dice at range 1, and then you also get surge to crit. Not bad for 5 points, but still also you gotta really be in that scenario where that works, and I've seen it happen. It can be quite nasty if you do, but it's just situational at best. And again, these are already expensive infantry that you don't want to be loading up with stuff that's just situational. Smoke grenades, you're just not going to take. Droid poppers, that's in the future. We can't really tell what that is yet. Once we do, we'll figure out. Might be useful against droids. My money, it won't be, but, we'll see. So now we're going to move on to the upgrade pack that you can get for the clones. And I quite like this model that FFG has, where they just release these little 4-packs for cheaper, and you can really change how you play your units. That being said, I think the clone one is a little bit on the weak side compared to the other factions upgrade packs, but we'll take a look at it anyways, and we'll start with the heavy weapons. Now, I gotta say, unfortunately, you're just way better off with the stock heavy weapons. Again, the DC-15, you get quality. The Z6, you get quantity. The DP-23, which is sort of like the shotgun, it's good. It's not bad. The problem is it's expensive. It's halfway between the Z6 and the DC-15 at 27 points, and it has 2 range. 2 range is just tough in Legion. It takes good units and just makes them situational. If you have a giant tabletop that's a spaceship interior, this might appeal to you a little bit more, just like units like B2 battle droids and fleet troopers might appeal to you a little bit more. But overall, that 2 range is it's tough. It's tough to make work. And I don't think 27 points is going to justify it, even with the Pierce. Pierce is a great keyword, but I don't even think that, your clones, you're going to be playing against droids a lot. And droids only have 1 Jedi, and they're probably only going to get 2 more Jedi, being Sidious and Maul. At least off the top of my head. There weren't that many Sith in the Clone Wars, so that Pierce isn't even going to really be capitalized too well on you. I guess we'll get Aura Singh at some point too, but Grievous isn't a Jedi, he can't deflect, so that Pierce isn't fantastically used against him. DP-23 is just not going to be that great. I've used it before. Yes, it can be lethal, but you have to have the right situation and the right terrain. Again, I don't like building units and lists based off terrain. Then we have the RPS-6 Phase 1 Trooper, or the Rocket Trooper. 2 to 4 and rainbow of each dice. So you get a red, a black, and a white. This, again, I just don't see this one ever being used. The RPS. Maybe the weird day when vehicles become meta, which I don't see that happening, but it's cumbersome. 26 points, more expensive than the Z6. It's got 4-inch range. Sorry, not 4-inch, but 4 range. That's good, but you also have the 2 minimum. You can't shoot it under range 2. And your enemies will be getting towards that range, eventually. Especially if they have things like speeders or ATRTs. Cumbersome, you can't move and shoot. Impact 2. Impact, let's be honest, man. Impact's just not that great of a keyword. Honestly, critical is kind of better. Because critical is universal. Impact only comes into kick-in when you're targeting armor. Which is obviously why you're taking this, but realistically, how often is armor going to show up? And then once that armor does show up, say you do kill it, then what do you use against? What do you use this rocket launcher against? You have to hold still to get those extra dice. I think this one is I think it's a dud right here, unfortunately. Now we're on to personnel, and this is where things get really interesting. because I really like the personnel upgrades for the clones. They're nice and fluffy and lore friendly and cool, but unfortunately they're also not fantastic. The Phase 1 Clone Captain. Now this is the guy who I ran with like immediately after I got the upgrade packs. And like I said earlier, it was a bit of a tar pit. It was a bit of a trap, you know. I upgraded my guys. I was like, oh, you get a training upgrade. That's awesome. I'm going to give them offensive push or hunter, get more aim tokens. But you're really just front-loading your unit with upgrades that give them tokens when you don't need it, because you can share tokens from other units. And as other players will demonstrate, you can just get a small clone unit, beef up your activations, use them as a token generator, and share the tokens, rather than front-loading points onto one unit, having less activations. So you do get also this cool exhaustible ability. When you activate, you cannot remove suppression tokens or be suppressed during this activation. It's a little bit of a card up your sleeve, no pun intended, trick where, say you get your clone unit and say you get suppressed. You can go ahead and tap this card. You no longer suffer the effects of suppression, so if you really, really need those two actions, if you need to get an aim token and shoot, or if you really need to move and get on an objective, you can do it. And it'll work. It'll work in scenarios, but again, it's very situational and it's exhaustible. That being said, if you're running against Imperials, the Clone Captain isn't a bad idea. Because here's what I'm going to show. You're going to get the Clone Captain going, and if you have a suppression list that's running things like Krennic and Shore and Death Troopers, you're going to get the Clone Captain, and then you're also going to get that training slot. And then you can go ahead and take something like Endurance in there, and you're going to allow to remove one extra suppression. And I think that's really where the Captain's going to shine. You know, you want to go for that offensive push. You want to go for that hunter. You think you're going to buff yourself up with aim tokens. Like I said, there's other ways to get aim tokens other than that are more effective for your overall army. But if you really need to avoid suppression, and clones don't have a whole lot of great suppression mitigators at the moment, taking a Captain and getting Endurance in there is going to help a great deal. Other than that, you're probably going to want to skip the Clone Captain. As cool as it is seeing those red stripes on the battlefield, you know, I love the red stripe Clone Captains. Any excuse to put him in, I'll take it. But unfortunately, you know, situational character. Then we also have the Clone Specialist. The Clone Specialist is one clone trooper, basically just regular blaster. He has exhaustible ability, which you gain one aim, dodge, or surge token. Now that's pretty nice. It's a free action too, but it is exhaustible. You also get an extra equipment slot. Again, the equipment slot, bit of a trap. You're going to put it in there. You guys are going to have 2 gear. You're going to feel like you need to take 2 gear because you're going to feel like you bought that extra slot, so why not optimize on it? And I'll be honest, there's not that much gear that you can add on to the Phase 1s that are going to be great. This is a good scenario to, you know, throw on your targeting scopes and your recon intel to get extra, you know, cheap and extra movement. But I don't know. I don't usually end up optimizing on that extra upgrade slot. But it is cool to have it. And if you're playing fluffy thematic lists, it can be very cool. But that activation where you gain the aim, dodge, or surge is pretty good. So let's say you plan on taking a lot of heat this round. You can take a dodge, and then you can tap this guy for free and get another dodge. Pretty good. Not wildly fantastic, but if your unit needs to stay alive, if you're on objective, it can be very good. You can also get that surge token, which you can't generate by just taking a surge order. You know, you can get an aim, you can get a dodge, you can't take a surge on your guys. At least to my knowledge, you can't. So having that ability is pretty nifty too. That being said, there's both of our commanders for the clones that we have right now, Obi-Wan and Rex, can dish out surge tokens. You also have the Phase 2s that can dish out surge tokens. And when I do my Phase 2 video, I'll talk more about that. But they can be a great generator because they get one automatically, and then they can share it using the clone's special army trait. But if you don't want to run those, and you want surge tokens reliably, this might be the card to take. He's not bad. And out of everything in this box set, I think he might be the number one. So now you're asking me, what would I run with my Phase 1s? Or what do I run with my Phase 1s? Well, I've kind of already given you a taste of that. When I'm playing Imperials, I like to get my Phase 1s. I like to give them the DC-15, which is an expensive gun. Keep in mind, it's a big upgrade. It's quite expensive. I usually play suppression lists when I'm playing Empire, so I like to add a Phase 1 Clone Captain. I like to give them Endurance. And for gear, I roll bad. I roll really bad, okay, guys? So I like to give them targeting scopes. But if you look at that, then you have 109 point units. That squad is more than doubled in their point costs. Maybe not, the most competitive, but it is what I like to run against Empire. I like to use fire support, and I also have other things that I like to run with this. I'll run a phase 2 squad, bare bones, side by side with this squad to beef them up. So, if you're doing this, consider taking a absolute bare bones squad next to them, and then to buff these guys up even more with other tokens. And again, this is a very anti-suppression oriented here with these phase 1s. Now, if I was playing a different army, if I was going for something a little more stock, here's what I'm probably going to run. Let's say I'm playing droids or rebels. I'm going to take a Z6 in here. Personnel, probably going to skip personnel. Gear, targeting scope. That's it. 81 point squad. Still, very pricey. Very pricey. But you're going to be cranking out 4 black dice, 6 white dice, and if you're getting that aim, you're going to be rerolling 3 dice. It's a nice volume. It's pretty good. You got good defenses. Not fantastic, but still just a solid damage-dealing unit against droids or rebels. Alright, but let's say you just run barebone clones. I think there's a lot of merit in that. Because then you have 6 activations, trooper units, that are only 312 points. That's pretty good. For those base dice of red defense and black attack dice, and then fire support, you're going to be able to overwhelm your enemy with pretty good infantry. I think there's a lot of merit to just not beefing the squads up at all and running them bone stock. And I think you might see that in the future in competitive lists. As much as I hate to say that, because I love tailor-making these lists and these squads to, fight certain things. I love having that beefed up clone squad who runs out there and just starts making crack shots. But that might just be the way to run them, to be honest. Again, it's all because of that token sharing ability. It's so good. But that's all for the Phase 1 Clone Troopers. I hope this gives you a good overlook of the basic Phase 1 Clone Troopers and the upgrades you get for them. The models for themselves are pretty cool. They're not anything super special. They're a bit of a pain to paint because of the joints. You're going to have to constantly touch those up. If you want to paint them, I recommend checking out Sarastro's latest painting guide. He shows this nice mix of the contrast paints from Games Workshop that really will get you a nice, beautiful dark contrast on their armor. You can also kit bash these guys pretty well. You can swap their arms out, not fantastically, especially with the upgrade unit. It's very hard to swap their arms, but with the base unit, you can swap arms out to give them kind of different poses, make their arms aiming up and down. That's something you can't really do with the Phase 2 Clone Troopers. So I appreciate that about the Phase 1s, even if they are just an old soft plastic. You can make them kind of look a little bit more diverse in their posing. But that being said, at the end of the day, they are this giant uniform army. And that's kind of symbolic in the movies of, those old Nazi propaganda videos where, you see them at the Nuremberg rally and they're all identical and their individuality is stripped. And I think that's always been the point of the stormtroopers and the clone troopers. So if you have guys who are duplicating poses, not the end of the world, because they don't all stand out like that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more unit review videos. I'm going to be cranking them out because this is currently in April of 2020, in the middle of the virus lockdown. So I should be able to get more of these out, get more of them uploaded to you. I plan on plowing through the Republic and then maybe looking at some other units from other stuff, and then getting over to other game modes like Bolt Action and maybe even 40k someday. So subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this. I may or may not have a Patreon set up yet, but don't worry about that. Leave a like, give it a view, comment on any synergies or tactics you have with Phase 1s. All of it helps support the channel and inspires me to keep this content coming. Thank you and goodbye.